So I thought I'd show you the setup before I actually attempt to apply power to the Amiga 500 motherboard here. We looked in a previous video at the trace that was lifted over here and the repair I did. There was another video where I went through some of the hardware I picked up. I picked up this little, I believe it's a scan doubler. I recognize the board inside. It's a Chinese scan doubler, can be used with an Atari ST or an Amiga, etc. I was able to actually find an Amiga power cord. There was a dead European adapter that I actually found in a scrap box, and I was able to retrieve the cable from it. I've got a cable hanging up here. I've got my Rigol DP832 set up over here to produce +5 and plus and minus 12. The cable is hooked directly into it. I have measured the voltages on the end of the cable, and they seem correct. And up here I've got just an expensive VGA, little HP VGA monitor that I'll be using, that's connected to the output of the scan doubler. So hopefully something will happen here. We'll find out. A couple of quick notes. And looking inside of this guy, it appears it's picking up +5 or +12, I'm not sure which, from the RGB video connector. So I shouldn't need to apply external power to the scan doubler here. That certainly helps. Let me get him slid back out of the way. He of course goes to the RGB video connector here on the motherboard. Power supplies are turned off. Now I have no idea here if the keyboard apparently has a reset function on the keyboard connector here. I have no idea if that's mandatory to get the system to start. But the first thing I'm going to do is get on the 5-volt rail right here, and I'm going to only enable the 5-volt power supply. Get the voltmeter fired up here. Just long enough to make sure I have 5 volts there. I'm confident in the wiring here, but one never knows. So, oops. Oh, that was actually the, of course you probably saw the cable slip here. I'm getting video out of the converter. So the voltage is at 4.89 here. So I don't have the plus and minus 12 volt rails lit up. I did see some kind of video stuff happen there. It certainly wasn't, the load floppy thing. So I'm going to go ahead and enable all the power supplies. So this brings up all three. Again, I see the converter box here waking up. I've just got a green screen. I had some looked to be weird video timing stuff going on there. Let's see if I can get the intensity to come up here. Brightness. Monitor's awfully dim. So there is actually something happening. I'm getting a green screen. It resets and flickers and runs around again in kind of a predictable pattern. And there it goes again. So there's something trying to happen here. I'm not sure exactly what. I don't remember how to get into the menu on the scan doubler. RGB HV. Let's see. Picture. Brightness, sharpness, default, return. So I'm working through the menu here on the scan doubler. Geometry. Don't seem to be able to enter the geometry menu. Let's set the video to something a little lower res. Looks to me like the language is set to English. And it's saying there's no signal. Let me power off. And power on again and see if we get... And all on. And now there is no signal. Did I set the input incorrectly, maybe? I actually have 5 volts still floating out here. And I do, it's still at 4.89. Source. Oh yeah, I changed the source accidentally. There's that green screen again with the flickering, so it's trying to do something. I'd love to see the the screen with the insert floppy. Obviously I'm not seeing that. Someplace here I have the pin out of the keyboard connector. There's pin 1 labeled on it. Yeah, it looks like pin 1 is labeled. So it would be clock reset. I don't know if that's an active high or an active low reset. Can't see well here. There's currently 5 volts on the reset pin. Next pin 4 should have 5 volts. Power supply rail. Again, the machine's cycling, trying to do something. So, I can attempt a reset here. I'm sure by pulling that keyboard reset pin low. See if I can get a ground connection someplace. Definitely something going on with the screen cycling like this. Pin 3 is reset. And there's no video. I'll release it. And we're back to that cycling thing. So motherboard's attempting to do something. We have to do more research. But you know, that's some progress, and this is kind of what I was seeing. Had a mono monitor plugged in earlier over here as well, so kind of the same thing. I've reseated all the chips. That of course didn't seem to help. You know, it could be looking for a floppy drive at this point. I just don't know. I just don't know enough about the hardware. I got a lot of reading to do. But obviously the scan doubler is trying to do something. I don't want to just dive in with schematics and start poking around. There's going to be information someplace that's going to help me. Apologies for Rosie there in the background again. It's not as bad as it sounds. Poor little girl. She's going to cough up a storm here. So anyhow, I'm going to go look at some forum entries and read some stuff and see what's happening here. So it's cycled through that. No, it's still cycling. So get a green screen. It's just solid green. It eventually tears, like the sync is changing. Oh, Rosie. Poor little girl. Like I say, this motherboard came to me condition unknown, so I'm not surprised it doesn't work. The photos I've seen do show this guy here in the orientation EN with the writing the way it is. It was hard to find the pin 1 mark on him, but it does appear to be in right. Where's the 68,000's opposite orientation of the ROM. This could be everything from bad memory to bad chip. I think the only chip I have a spare of is the Gary, and that's because it's attached to that memory card. So let's look at some current draws. It's drawing 1.6, almost 1.7 amps off the 5-volt rail, and 20-30 milliamps off the plus and minus 12 rails. So no surprise, since the majority of the power is in the 5-volt rail. So I can actually go in here and make up for the loss in the cable. So we're at 4.89. This should bring me up. So there's 4.992 volts, and I'm driving it with 5.1 volts off the power supply. So there's a 1/10 of a volt loss essentially in the power cable. That's no surprise, but we know we've got now 5 volts on the board. Actually, that's kind of a poor assumption. Let me actually get the ground over on the board as well. Right now I'm referencing the ground off of the power supply. Oh, that was the wrong thing to remove. Turn power off. Power back on. This right here. Let's actually get over here onto a ground reference of the board. Look at 5-volt rail. And that makes sense. I need to come up another 1/10 of a volt. Okay, we're now actually driving. Get right down on the 2 pins of the TTL device. And I've got 4.99 volts directly across the device. So there's about 2/10 of a volt drop in the power cable, and the 1/10 of a volt I saw earlier is because I had the ground reference for the meter over at the power supply, so I was really only seeing the drop across one of the 2 leads. I've of course got the 5-volt lead coming in and the black lead, I'll say, coming out. About a 1/10 of a volt drop across each. 12-volt rail should be fine. Well, I've rambled on long enough. I'll go do some research and see if I can find something on green screen, blah, 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 and go from there. So after reading across several forums, it appears the green screen is typically an issue with memory, which can often be either the Agnes chip, a bad RAM itself, or a couple of the support chips around memory. We got data path here. Any one of these guys could have been bad. Anything down here. And it said to reseat the Agnes. So I popped the Agnes up out of his socket, and I don't know if this will show up. But what I discovered is the second pin in from this side is just plain broke off. There's a little tiny metal stub sticking out where the pin was. So somebody has popped that Agnes chip out. Pin was broke off. They've put the bad Agnes back in this board, probably to repair their own board or whatever. But so it's missing a pin, and I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to deal with that. That's rather ugly. Like I said, there's a little stub of a pin poking out. But I don't know if I can get a bit of solder onto it. Anything I do here would be a very temporary fix. I've got a super fine tip here on my JBC pencil, and I'm going to attempt to Get that little bit of exposure. Wow. Now you saw it, I just burnt myself. Gonna see if I can get that little bit of exposed copper there to take some solder. I doubt I'm going to be able to. And the question becomes how to make contact. There's no really good way to do this that would be a permanent fix, but I'd like to get enough of a contact just to be able to test. I don't know if I can get that wrap wire to stick to that or not to give me enough. I don't know, you know, this is just ugly. Whoever did this would have been kinder to just not put the chip back in, but, you know, eBay, photos. Well, I can actually get that piece of wrap wire to grab on there. Problem is it's not centered, and I'd like it centered, so it's not. Taking a chance on catching on one of the other pins. Just another quick note, this piece of cardboard behind here was to keep the alligator clips from tearing into the J leads on this. They do stick out quite a bit. So that does give me a little bit of something for that to bite into. I'm going to take this lead and trim it down a bit. I think I'm going to put a piece of electrical tape under there to hold that in place. It's got a little bitty bit of raised solder on it that I don't like. I like that smoothed off. Doesn't appear to be shorted to the pin next to it. No, I can get the razor knife clearly through there. Oh, good Lord. I actually cleaned the bench. You may have noticed in the video the bench is substantially cleaner than it was. The problem is other stuff is still very messy. And I don't know where there's electrical tape. I want a little piece of electrical tape that I'm going to use on the bottom side of the Agnes. Yeah, I'm realizing a big chunk of this is off camera. Apologies. Not that you'd be able to see this kind of fine detail. Let me get my glasses back on so I can explain what I've done here. Hopefully this will show up somewhat. Because there was a little bit of the pin still poking out there, I was able to get a little bit of solder onto it and then take a piece of wrap wire and get that wrap wire to actually attach to that solder. I'm going to take a piece of electrical tape and just hold this down in place underneath here just to help kind of hold that wire in place. And that's what I'm working on now. Just getting a piece of tape. No, not happy with that. It's not as... It didn't stick very well. Yeah, this is rather fidgety. I don't honestly know if I can get that into the socket. flash and then it'll make contact. But there's really only one way to find out here, and that is to apply power again. And see if we get past that green screen. Oh, different color screen. So it's no longer green, it's now yellow, which is interesting. So now I'm going to have to go look up what a yellow screen means. So, we actually do seem to have made a difference here. It's certainly not a pretty fix. I am getting a yellow screen, so power supply off, power supply on. So I'm sure yellow means something different. Oh, that's encouraging. Maybe. Screen's completely gray. It's just staying completely gray. Of course, maybe I just fried the Agnes chip. I am on an anti-static surface here, but still. Let's force a reset. That reset is pin 3. It's now just a gray screen. That's interesting. As always, there's a sea of glasses and never the pair I need. It's the ones I just took off. Oh, good Lord, where's my... There they are. Oh, wrong button. Get the source back. Go into the menu. Display, and we'll go to the max resolution. Input signal out of range. The monitor can't deal with that. But it will deal with 1024 by 768. Well, I had a yellow screen for a bit, and now I have a gray screen, and I don't know. So it is seeing the reset. We've made things a little better or a little worse. We've gotten past a potential memory issue here with a horrifically horrible kludge. Menu, geometry. bring the sizes down of the video. Just to make sure that vertical size, everything that should be on screen is, and it is. Horizontal position. Okay. I'm actually getting the video centered up on the screen here. Vertical position. Okay, so the display is within the margins of the LCD. And I've had to set the clamp start and stop. I mean, this thing was originally adjusted for the Amiga. I've just tweaked slightly, return. I don't know at this point. Cycle the power supply one more time. Yellow screen, yellow screen. So I'm back to the yellow screen. Pressure on that wrap wire. Yellow screen. Okay, I'm not sure what the gray screen was, but I've definitely got a yellowish green screen, but it's no longer green. I'll have to now go research a yellow screen. See what that tells us. It's kind of a shame whoever broke that pin off. So, I think in the first video I commented that the Agnes chip didn't seem to be square in the socket. Just something to be aware of is a lot of people want to go in and use a screwdriver to pop the chip out. There's a special tool that's used to lift chips up out like that. I actually couldn't find mine. I do have a way of what's safely for me removing these kind of chips from these sockets, but I'm not going to share it for fear you'll break your socket. If you get in here and pry, you'll probably crack the socket, and once you crack the socket, the tension's gone and you never get good contact again. So don't get a little screwdriver in there and pry. Anyhow, I guess I'll be back.